You can bring home $90,000 a year and feel completely stretched thin, and you can pull in that exact same $90,000 and feel like almost nothing can touch you. Same paycheck hitting the same account. The difference comes down to one number that almost nobody can actually name on the spot. Meet Jason Logan, same company, same role, same $90,000 that lands on the same Friday, same gas station coffee on the morning drive in. On paper, you genuinely cannot tell these two apart. Then both of their cars break down in the same week. Same shop, same $1,400 repair estimate each. Jace taps his card, doesn't blink, and goes back to whatever he was doing. Logan reads the estimate 3 times, feels something drop in his stomach, and opens his banking app to figure out which bill he can push to next month. Same income, same repair bill, two completely different internal experiences. And what separates Jace from Logan, it isn't willpower, it isn't luck, and it absolutely is not the paycheck. It's a number neither of them ever brings up in conversation: net worth. There are 3 specific points on that number line where life quietly stops feeling like a treadmill you're stuck on and starts feeling like something you're actually directing. My name is Nick, and I've spent more time than I should have trying to figure out exactly why two people with the same direct deposit can exist in completely different financial realities. If you have ever felt like you're putting in real effort and somehow not moving forward, do me a favor and subscribe, because today we're mapping the 3 net worth levels where your entire experience of money actually changes. And I'll flag this now. The 3rd level does something to people that almost nobody anticipates. Plenty of people reach it and are still miserable, and the research has finally caught up to explaining why. We'll get there. But the 1st level is probably closer than you're giving it credit for. So let's start at the foundation. Here's the framing that makes all of this land properly. We are obsessed with income. What do you make? What's the salary? What's the raise looking like? But income is just water running through your hands. Net worth is what's actually sitting in the bucket after it passes through. And it turns out that bucket has 3 lines painted on the inside. 3 thresholds where once you clear them, the water starts behaving entirely differently. Jace had crossed the first line. Logan hadn't. That is the full story of that parking lot moment. Level 1, $100,000. Escape velocity, 100 grand. I know that for some of you, reading that feels like a distant target, and for others, it almost sounds like a low bar. Either way, stay with me, because this is the single most important threshold in this entire video, and the math behind why is actually worth appreciating. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's late business partner, and a man whose personal fortune was measured in billions, was once asked what he would tell someone trying to build real wealth. His answer has been passed around for decades for good reason. He said, roughly cleaned up, the first $100,000 is a grind, but you have got to do it. Figure out a way to get your hands on $100,000. After that, you can ease up a little. Now, why would a man worth billion zero in on a number that for him was statistical noise? Because the first $100,000 is the only leg of the entire journey where you personally do nearly all of the lifting. Let me show you exactly what that means. Say you're saving and investing $10,000 a year at a 7% return. Getting from zero to your first $100,000 takes you roughly 7 to 8 years. And during that entire stretch, the market is barely pulling its weight. Almost every dollar in that account got there because you earned it, saved it, and chose not to spend it. It's a grind. It feels slow because it actually is slow. But then watch what shifts. Going from $100,000 to $200,000 doesn't take another 8 years. It takes around 5. From $200,000 to $300,000 under 4 years. And here's the part that should make you sit up straight. Going from $500,000 to a full million takes about the same amount of time it originally took you to scratch together that first $100,000. Except now, your portfolio is producing 10 times the wealth in that same window. Same patience, same discipline, dramatically different output, because somewhere in there, your money quietly clocked in for its first shift. At $100,000 invested at 7%, your portfolio is generating around $7,000 a year on its own. That is nearly a full year's worth of a maxed out IRA contribution produced entirely by money you already accumulated while you were doing other things. You spent 8 years pushing that snowball up the hill, and at $100,000, it finally crests and starts rolling on its own. But here is the piece almost nobody talks about alongside the math. The real shift at $100,000 is not what happens to the numbers, it is what happens inside your head. There is a study I keep coming back to. Researchers set up in a New Jersey mall and pulled in regular shoppers off the floor. They asked half of them to imagine a car repair that cost $150. The other half imagined the same repair at $1,500. Then everyone took a standard cognitive test, the kind that measures raw problem-solving ability. For the higher income shoppers, the two groups performed identically, but for the lower income shoppers who had to imagine the $1,500 repair, their scores dropped significantly, roughly a full standard deviation. Same people, same brains. The only thing that changed was 30 seconds of mentally dealing with a financial shortfall they didn't have a clean answer for. The researchers described the cognitive effect as comparable to losing an entire night of sleep. So think about moving through your whole life carrying that. Every decision, every conversation, every moment with your kids, every shot at a promotion, always running a little slower because some corner of your mind is perpetually doing a background calculation on whether you can handle an emergency. That is Logan in that parking lot. His brain is not inferior to Jace's. It is just being taxed constantly. And this is not rare. The Federal Reserve found that nearly 30% of American adults could not absorb a surprise $500 expense from savings or cash on hand. Around 30% could not cover 3 months of living expenses by any means available to them. That is not a character problem. That is a cushion problem. $100,000 buys you out of that category, not into a yacht, into quiet, into a brain that is not running a low-grade financial alarm in the background every day of your life. That is why this is level 1. It's not about being rich. It is about getting your mental bandwidth back. Quick, honest check before we move up. Be real with yourself about where you actually stand. Are you below this line, right on it, or past it? Hold that answer because it changes how you hear everything that comes next. Level 2, $500,000 to $1 million when your money gets its own job. All right, you've hit escape velocity, the static is gone, so what's next? Now you enter the most psychologically interesting and honestly strangest stretch of the whole climb, the run from $500,000 to $1 million. And what makes it strange is that for the first time, the most productive worker in your household might not actually be a person. Back to the math because it tells the story cleanly. At $500,000 invested, a 7% return generates roughly $35,000 a year. Let that sit for a second. $35,000 appearing every year produced by nothing except money you already had working in the background. For reference, that is in the ballpark of what a typical full-time American worker earns from their job. Your portfolio is now running a solid second income, and it does not call in sick, does not need time off, does not have opinions about how it is being managed, and does not dread Monday mornings. At a full $1 million, that same 7% produces about $70,000 a year. That is more than the typical American individual earns from working full-time. Read that one more time. At $1 million invested, your money out-earns a full-time salary every year while you sleep, while you travel, while you are doing literally anything else. This is the level where the phrase work optional stops living in a social media ad and starts being something you can actually see from where you're standing. You are not there yet, but you can see it. And the visibility alone changes how you show up. Here is what level 2 actually feels like when you're living inside it. It is the meeting where your boss says something genuinely unreasonable, and instead of absorbing it and moving on, you realize, almost surprising yourself that you could leave. You probably won't today because you're not reckless about it, but you could. That one quiet shift in your internal reality slowly rewires how you negotiate, what you decide to put up with, and how much of your self respect you're willing to trade for the security of staying. It shows up in smaller ways too. It is not scanning prices before things go in the cart. It is booking the direct flight instead of the connecting one to save $60. It is the dishwasher dying and the whole situation wrapping up in about 4 minutes because you Google a replacement, order it, and it's done. None of those things are luxury behaviors. They are just friction being lifted from your week, one decision at a time. And the unusual thing is that most people at this level don't even clock when the shift happened. They just gradually notice they stopped bracing for things. And let's be straight about how rare this level actually is. About 21% of US households are millionaires, and the threshold for the top 10% of all US households by net worth now sits around $2.4 million, cross a million. And you are not just doing all right. You are in the top fifth of every household in this country. The problem is it rarely feels that way from the inside, and there is a specific reason for that, which brings us to the trap buried inside level 2. That trap is called lifestyle inflation, and it is the quietest and most effective way to destroy everything this level is supposed to build. Every time income climbs, there is a gravitational pull drawing spending up right alongside it. Researchers call this the hedonic treadmill. You get the raise, you get the nicer car, and within roughly a year, the nicer car just feels like your car. The emotional payoff fades, but the payment stays, so the cycle repeats. This is how someone earning $300,000 a year ends up financially squeezed. Their money never gets the chance to take that second job because every dollar gets absorbed into a bigger mortgage, a leased luxury vehicle, and a lifestyle that quietly eats the future to pay for the present. Level 2 is not really about earning more. It is about having the discipline to keep the gap between what you earn and what you spend open long enough for compounding to do its work. Notice the pattern that is forming here. Level 1 did not add a luxury, it subtracted a fear, the fear of the financial emergency. Level 2 subtracts another one, the fear of being permanently tied to one employer. Every level you climb is not about accumulating more things. It is about removing a specific fear from your daily life. Keep that in mind because level 3 removes the biggest one, and almost nobody is actually ready for what comes with it. Level 3, $2.5 million to $5 million, buying back your time. There is a scene in a film called The Gambler where John Goodman, playing the human embodiment of someone who has permanently stopped doing things he does not want to do, lays out his entire personal philosophy around money. He says, the goal is not simply to be rich. The goal is to reach a specific number, park it somewhere it can grow safely, and arrive at what he calls FU money. A position where no person, no employer, no bank can compel you to do anything you would not freely choose. His number was $2.5 million. And here is what is worth understanding. That was not just something a writer made up for a movie. That number is almost precisely correct mathematically. And it is built on one of the most thoroughly tested concepts in all of personal finance. It is called the 4% rule, and it came out of research where analysts stress tested decades of real market history to answer a single question. How much can you pull out of a portfolio annually without the portfolio eventually going to zero? The answer they kept landing on was roughly 4%, which produces a beautifully clean shortcut. Whatever your life costs per year, multiply that number by 25. That is your target. The point where your investment returns can fund your lifestyle essentially indefinitely. Let's run it. If your life costs $40,000 a year, your number is $1 million. If you spend $80,000, it's $2 million. If you want to live on $100,000 a year and never need to work again, you need roughly $2.5 million. Recognize that? That is Goodman's number. Someone on that production crew ran the actual math. Push it to $5 million, and you can sustain a $175,000 to $200,000 annual lifestyle entirely from returns, and you are now sitting inside the top 4% of all US households. Out of roughly 135 million households in this country, only about 5.5 million have $5 million or more. This is genuinely a different category, and I want to be straight with you here because this is the level I see people get most wrong. The math finally works completely in your favor, and people assume that the sense of meaning and satisfaction will show up automatically alongside it. It doesn't. They imagine level 3 is fundamentally about things: the property, the boat, the watch that costs more than some people's cars. It is not. Because by the time you actually get here, the research is waiting with something almost uncomfortable for a significant number of people. Here is the real and somewhat inconvenient truth about money and happiness. For years, the most widely cited study on this topic concluded that emotional well-being more or less flatlines once household income reaches around $100,000 a year. That beyond that point, more money just stops moving the needle on how you feel day to day. Then a researcher named Matthew Killingsworth came along, tracked over 1 million real-time mood reports from thousands of participants, and found that the earlier conclusion was simply not accurate. Happiness continued rising alongside income with no visible ceiling. So, which set of findings is correct? Here's the answer I flagged at the top of this video, and it is genuinely the most practically useful idea here. The two research camps actually sat down together and worked through it. For most people, roughly the 80% who are already in a reasonably content baseline, more money really does keep producing more happiness all the way up. But for the other 20%, the people who are genuinely unhappy, money relieves the suffering up to about $100,000 a year, and then it just levels off completely. Because their unhappiness was never actually about money to begin with. And no net worth figure can resolve a problem that money did not cause. That is the thing hiding inside level 3 that people do not see until they are standing in it. The people who arrive here and stay miserable are the ones who believed that reaching the number was the destination. The people who get here and finally feel different are the ones who understood that the number is just the tool you use to buy the only thing money can genuinely purchase that actually matters. Control over your own time. Waking up when you wake up. Saying yes to the people you love and no to the work you don't. Being present for the moments you kept postponing. Level 1 bought back a quiet mind. Level 2 bought back real options. Level 3 buys back your one genuinely irreplaceable non-renewable asset. The actual hours of your life, from whoever used to have a claim on them. That is the real game here. That is what is actually waiting on the other side of that number. Now, if you're sitting with this thinking, I am not even close to level 1, this all feels distant. I need you to stop and actually hear this. The fact that these levels are uncommon is not a reason to feel behind. It is precisely why they are worth building toward. Nearly a third of this country cannot cover 3 months of basic expenses. The bar for your life to feel fundamentally different is not infinite wealth. It is a cushion, then a real choice, then your time back. That is the complete progression, and the most genuinely encouraging part of all of this is what we open with. The hardest, most thankless, slowest stretch of this entire journey is the climb to that first $100,000, the phase where it's almost entirely you and the market is barely contributing. Almost everyone who gives up does it right there in the middle of the slog, right before the snowball finally crests the top of the hill. If you can simply outlast the boring stretch, the math stops working against you and starts working alongside you. You do not need to get smarter about any of this. You just have to get stubborn enough to stay in it. Quick note, and then straight back to it. Everything I just did in this video, taking a dry Federal Reserve data point and turning it into the mall study, the snowball analogy, the good man scene, that is not some natural talent. it is a process I can actually teach, and it is exactly what I walk through in a community I built for people who want to research, write, and build a faceless YOUTUBE channel in spaces like personal finance. If that kind of project has ever occurred to you, the link is in the description. Zero pressure, it is there when you want it. Now back to your money. Here's the idea I want you to walk away with. We have been conditioned to measure ourselves through income. The number on the offer letter, the title in the email signature, the salary you'd be comfortable mentioning at a dinner. But income is just the speed of the water. Net worth is the actual size of the bucket. Jace and Logan are two people with identical $90,000 paychecks living in completely different realities in that parking lot. The only thing that ever separated them was which line inside the bucket each of them had quietly crossed. Jace was not richer on payday. He was just further along the number line. That's it. That is the entire difference. You do not reach level 3 by accident, and you do not reach level 1 overnight. But you get there through one consistent, unglamorous, automated contribution after another. So pick your level, not the aspirational one you imagine from a distance. The next one, the one that is actually reachable from exactly where you are standing today. Because 10 years from now, that money is either going to be quietly working for you the way it works for Jace, or you are going to be working around the absence of it the way Logan does. And I think you already know which version of that parking lot you'd rather be living. One last thing, and it is the only unremarkable sentence in here. I am not a financial advisor, and none of this is financial advice. It is just patterns I have watched play out with real numbers attached to them. Take what is genuinely useful to you and set the rest aside. If this changed how you think about the number sitting in your account right now, drop a comment telling me which level you are currently climbing toward. I actually read every one of them, and if you want the other half of this picture, the specific moves that get you across that first line as efficiently as possible, I put together a full video on exactly that, and it is sitting right there on the screen. Go watch that one next. I'll see you in it.